Well, it's a troubling story to northern Alberta, but I think there's kind of a light at the end of the tunnel here. It concerns the Lubicon Cree Nation in northern Alberta. In fact, the story in the Calgary Herald notes that Premier-designate Jim Prentice is himself planning on visiting the community, where there are many challenges. And what we learned this week is about, on top of all the challenges, like, for example, lack of running water and some pretty basic needs, there's the additional problem of corruption that have been uncovered because of the work, though, of our next guest and how he's trying to fix his community, the community where he grew up. Yeah,
on the very surface, this sounds like that cliched story about squandered finances or corruption on another First Nation. But when you hear this story, it is starkly different about the remedies therein. We welcome to the air now Chief Billy Joe Laboucan. Chief, it's our pleasure to have you on today.
Yeah, thank you very much. Glad to be on here.
I kind of want you to take us back to the start of this story because it really starts, I think, with you becoming chief of the band. So can you tell us how you were elected?
Yeah, we went through the election on February 15, 2013. It was about a year and a half ago. And it was the first ever secret ballot election. Prior to that is show of hands.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so that also led to a lot of discrepancies and favoritism.
So give us an idea of that. I mean, I don't think anybody could dispute what you just said, but how many people voted when it was show of hands versus how many people voted secret ballot?
Well, it's, I think, like there would be probably about the same number of people would vote, but then when you're in a show of hands, especially when the past regime was in power, they and their supporters would sit in front of the room, facing the electorate. So they would watch then how people voted, and depending upon how you vote, depended upon what kind of services that you're eligible for. Like, for example, if you didn't vote the right way, then you'd have a hard time getting jobs or educational sponsorship or even social assistance.
So what convinced you then that you needed to get involved, and why did you want to run to be chief?
Well, I tell you the truth, I didn't really want to run.
Really?
Best kind of leader. Go on.
Yeah,
yep.
Yeah. But I was asked by the community, and I had tried once running against Bernard Ominiak in 1994, and that didn't turn out really well because it was the secret ballot. It wasn't a secret ballot; it was a show of hands, and the people were still scared of how they voted, so they didn't want to, vote. So I think if it had been a secret ballot election, it might have been a different story, even back then. But as a result of that, I pretty much had to leave the community because I couldn't get a job here. I ended up losing my house, or ended up giving my house away. And then, so now since about 2 or 3 years ago, things have happened since then. I mean, there had been a split in the inner group in 2009, and there had been an election at that time, but it hadn't been recognized. And then about a couple of years later, other people started asking to see whether, on how we could organize to assume the leadership position of Lubicon. But this time, I had to make sure that everyone was on board, that they were, that they would not back out at the last minute. And because I kind of got left hanging last time, and this time though we had really good support because people by now had enough of what they were going through.
Okay, now's a really good time then to explain to us the level at which the corruption went to. So can you tell us what living conditions were like for the Lubicon Nation and put a dollar amount on the level of corruption, if you could?
Well, it's really hard to judge, because first of all, I'd like to point out we're not on a witch hunt here. The forensic audit was ordered so that we could gauge the liability and the assets because I mean, as a government, new government going in, we have to find out what is there for us, right? Mm-hmm. What kind of liabilities we have. So that's the purpose. I mean, it wasn't to point fingers at people and say, we caught you with your fingers in a jar, but then
right, Chief. I mean, we know that
you
weren't going into this with an enemy in mind, and you want to make sure somebody is punished. But there's a very real situation here where
that's correct.
The band has the Cree Development Corporation, which was run by Bernard Ominiak, who you mentioned earlier, and who was basically appropriating government money and then distributing it to those he saw fit, not necessarily taking care of the band. And we're talking about corruption over $1 million, which is a story that a lot of Canadians are really, really tired of hearing. I can't imagine how members of the Lubicon First Nation felt about that.
Yes, yeah. I mean, there is that point. I mean, we didn't. I mean, there had been suspicions of community members, and stories, but then we didn't know how much it was. I mean, and this only touches the tip of the iceberg too. I mean, there's. I'm not exactly sure. I mean, we only looked at about 4 years of bank records. So, I mean.
So since the 20 years when you lost to him prior, could have been.
That's correct.
So over just 4 years then, the former chief and his family, that this forensic audit found that they paid themselves over $3 million.
Yes. I mean, those facts are indisputable. Now, but I guess in going forward, our intention is, not only having exposed the truth, but we want to carry on and put things right, and that part of that means reconciliation of the two groups, and being the majority, in the community. I mean, we want to work with all people, all Lubicon band members, so that we resolve the land claim situation, that we get adequate housing, the roads, all the infrastructure that we need, as well as the training, for the young people, a good school, a brand new school, rather than the moldy modulars that we have to put up with.
Right. There's been reports, too, of a lack of running water. Is that true?
And there has been no running water, We're probably the only community in Alberta that doesn't have running water, or one of the two, I guess.
Right.
And that's one of the things that we've been doing this past year. Is we have 19 units coming in, and they're being outfitted with cistern and septic tanks, and then we had 7 other units prior to that. Those ones were by the federal government. These ones were by the provincial government, and there had been others before that also. From the previous regime under Stevie Noski, there had been some other trailers that had been brought in also.
Okay. We have to take a short commercial break here, if you don't mind, Chief.
Sure. Yeah,
sure. We'll put you on hold. We'll ask you to stand by. It's very different. Typically, we interview politicians who will tell you why the other politician is such a bad person and how they're... We're here listening to Chief Billy Joe Laboucan say, we need to create a nation that includes everybody, including that group that we've just sort of rescued the nation from.
Yeah,
that's what I'm hearing. It's
and
amazing.
I want to find out a bit more what becomes now of this Cree Development Corporation, because that was the company controlled by the former chief. Now, I mean, it was created to provide development for this community. I mean, can that still be salvaged, right? I mean, how much of a role do they play? So there's a lot more to explore here. Chief Billy Joe Laboucan on the line with us. We are back with more right after this. Talking about the challenges facing the Lubicon Lake Band, the new chief looking to clean things up and move this community forward. Part of that has involved a forensic audit of the Cree Development Corporation. Chief Billy Joe Laboucan on the line with us. Chief, so what now for the Cree Development Corporation? Does it still have a role to play in helping to develop this community?
Well, that is exactly our next decision that we have to make. Because prior to this, it was quite an anomaly, because the Cree Development Corporation was right into the Lubicon Lake First Nation Constitution, which is unlike anything anywhere in Canada. So we have to extract that CDC or Cree Development Corporation out of the Constitution.
Right.
And when we do that, then I don't know if it's going to have a role. I think it's going to be more of a liability for us.
Chief, and tripping on this, it's always a tongue twister for me. MNP is the accounting firm that took over the band's finances.
Yes.
They also performed the audit?
Different arm of them, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a huge firm.
Who instigated that?
The forensic audit?
Yeah.
Yeah, our council did.
Your council did?
You asked for it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because here's what strikes me about this story so much is that these stories of fraud or conspiracy or misappropriated finances on First Nations are a little bit cliched around Canada at this point because we've heard enough of them to the point where now it's almost as though we're tarring all First Nations with the same brush, that the chiefs are getting rich while their people are living in squalor, right?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, up here, we've got a situation where you took the council took absolute control of the problem, sought to solve it themselves, and now you're basically saying that instead of having $20 million going to a small group of people to pay credit card bills and vehicle expenses, we're going to actually manage the money respectively. Is there a message here that you maybe intentionally or unintentionally are trying to send to all First Nations across Canada?
Certainly not intentionally, but for ourselves, we want to be very transparent. We want to make sure that the people are the ones that govern us.
Right.
We're our leadership are the servants of the people. And I think that's a complete turnaround from before. We're pretty much under dictatorship rule. And I think that's, people can see that, and they don't want to go back there ever. I mean, that's the number one thing. You mentioned though earlier on this intimidation, and it must have been that no one felt they could come forward. You talked yourself that you were kind of ostracized from the community. There's got to be a lesson in that. I mean, surely, when we heard about Attawapiskat, for an example, we know that people knew something was amiss. Were they just intimidated into silence, do you think? Yeah, I would imagine so. I mean, there's various forms of keeping people silent. You can either threaten them or pay them off or whatever the situation may be. But I guess that's not where, for us, that's just something that we have to cross and get on with building the community, making sure that there's adequate shelter, there's training and jobs for young people and adequate school, a good sewage lagoon, adequate water, so that people can have running water. But beyond that, the ultimate goal here is to settle this claim, this 80-year-old claim. And, it's been stalled out for so long, and that is a huge impediment towards, this community realizing their dreams. And those dreams are of having, new homes, good roads, good school, a brand new school, that kind of thing. So it's not, it's not a new dream. I mean, people in the rest of Canada are living that dream. We've had the misfortune of being derailed for so long that, that we really want to make things right.
And we read that the Premier Designate, Jim Prentice, has plans to visit your community. Have you spoken with him directly?
No, I haven't for a time, no.
What would you like to hear? I mean, as provincial and federal governments look at this situation, what role do you think that they have to play? Well, the federal government certainly has a fiduciary responsibility for First Nations, but we've had really good communication and cooperation with the provincial government. With especially with Minister Frank Oberle. We have 19 trailers coming in
right now into the community that are being outfitted with cistern and septic tanks. And then we had 7 other units from the previous year. So we have about 25 units, probably up to 30 units, that will have running water, by the end of this year. And that's just a small thing right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The bigger thing is, being able to get people working together, resolve the claim. Then other good things will follow.
Well, we wish you the best of luck with that, sir, and thanks very much for coming on the radio in Calgary to tell the story today.
Yeah, I appreciate the fact that you were able to talk with me. Thank you.
Well, we do too. We hope to talk to you again down the road a little bit, okay?
Yeah, very good.
Right,
have a good day.
Take care, sir. Chief Billy Joe Laboucan of the Lubicon Lake Band, who will soon meet with Premier Prentice, as you point out.
Yeah.
Premier does,
so,
right? Yeah.
there's a lot, as he said. There are the short-term challenges, the long-term challenges. So they got a lot that they need to deal with. But to also then stumble across this and realize that money that was supposed to be helping the community went somewhere else, that's just, it almost must feel like a step backward.
Yeah, whenever we get a chance to talk to somebody, Chief Billy Joe Laboucan here, or Chief Mike Delisle from Gunawaga, or Chief Louis from Soyuz, whenever we get a chance to talk to these chiefs who can show us what is capable from within the nation in terms of improving situations, I really think that we need to spend much more time focusing on that and empowering these bands to repair situations themselves. There's a lot of corruption amongst First Nations bands. We know that. That's been proven.
Yeah,
it's proven again.
But it's not like in this case it was the federal government coming in and demanding an audit.
Right.
These were, this was someone who fought to get elected as chief and then said, you know what, let's open up the books. So they're the ones trying to clean this up.
Yeah, a guy looking at his nation saying we don't need to live in crushing poverty. Well, these guys are driving a brand new pickup truck every 6 months. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
A refreshing story. We'll take a break. Be right back after this to wrap things up.